boys and girls. Well, we're back to our whiteboard. I hope today, before you came to our whiteboard activity, you had a chance to read our story about community helpers. I'm sure that you helped Miss Beck say many of the words in that story because you guys are such great readers and you learn so quickly when you listen to a story. I wish I could hear you in person. Today, we're going to be talking about that story and see if we have some information from that story that helps us to understand why community helpers are so important to all of us. I made a great big blue T. See the big blue T? That is so I can make a T chart. On my T chart, on this part here, I'm going to talk about who the community helper is. And on this part, I'm going to talk about how that community helper helps us. So I already wrote one, doctors and nurses. And I'm going to write one other thing. And hospital staff. Now, staff is a strange word that maybe you guys don't use very often. But what it means is that people who work in the hospital. Because doctors and nurses are very important. They help us to feel better for sure. They do all sorts of things when we're not feeling our best or when we hurt ourselves to make us feel better. But in order for the hospital to run, there are so many people in the hospital that help it run it well. In order for the hospital to run, it takes a lot of different people doing a lot of different jobs. And if they weren't all doing their jobs, then maybe we wouldn't have such a great hospital to go to. We have people who cook food for the sick people. We have people who clean the hospital so that all the germs are gone. We have people who help the nurses take care of the patients. We have people who do lab tests to see why people are sick or what's making them sick. We have people who drive ambulances, who bring the people very quickly to the hospital when they have to get there. And we have, of course, our doctors and nurses. So there's a lot of people in the medical world, in the hospital world, that help us to make sure that we have a place that's going to help us feel better when we're not well. So doctors, nurses, and hospital staff, how do they help? Well, they all work to make sure that we stay healthy, don't they? And make us feel better. So I'm going to write that over here. I'm not going to write a sentence. I'm writing point form today, which means I don't have to use capitals or periods, and I don't have to use a lot of words. It's a good way to use it, make a T-chart, not to have to put a lot of words. So I'm going to say, keep us healthy, because that's one thing they do. And I'm going to say, make us, whoops, Miss Beck's forgot an E in make. Make us feel better. So that's one community helper that we had in our story. Another community helper that we had in our story was the truck driver. Truck, starts with a T. Truck drivers. Now, right now, not everything is open, and it's not easy to get all the things that we need, but the truck drivers have been working very hard to bring us all the kinds of different things that we need. They bring us food, they bring us toilet paper, which is a huge issue right now, and they bring things to factories to make sure that we can still have food, toilet paper, cleaning supplies, all the things that we are using every day in our lives. So I think they do a very important job to help our community. So I'm going to say, bring food, and I'm going to say stuff, because there's so much stuff they bring in those trucks that we need. So many things. bring food and stuff to our store. I'll say stores because we have more than one. Stores. So far we have doctors, nurses and hospital staff, truck driver, I guess truck drivers because there's more than one. Now I think I'm going to say grocery clerks or grocery store workers. I'm going to put that here, grocery store workers. They are so important to our community right now. If the people in the grocery store weren't there, where would we go and get all of our food from? And right now, when a lot of people are sick and a lot of people have to stay home, the grocery store workers are still at work, putting stuff on the shelves, getting the food off the trucks, getting it ready so that when we go to the grocery store, we can choose some things to eat. Choose a lot of the things that we want to eat. So over here, I'm going to say, make sure there's food for us to buy, right? They make sure there's food for us to buy. And that's a pretty important job in a community because it's no fun not to have food. Make sure there is, does everyone remember how to spell is? 2 letters. It's food for us to buy. So now I'm going to bring my chair down a little, guys. Whoop. So I can write at the lower part of our T chart. So we have doctors, nurses, and hospital staff, truck drivers, grocery store workers. Who else was on our list of important people? Policemen. We could put them. I'll say police. Because there's police women and there's policemen and police people. So we'll just put police. And how do they help our community? Well, they make sure that everybody stays safe and follows the rules, right? So I'm going to say keeps us safe. Keep us safe. So the police keep us safe. They make sure that there's no bad guys out there doing things they shouldn't do. They make sure that people are following rules and taking care of each other. So they have a pretty important job. Now we have firefighters. Firefighters. This Specs finds it hard to write at the bottom of the chart. Not a lot of room there. Firefighters. So firefighters are important to our community because when things catch on fire, we need to put them out, right? And they are very brave. They will often climb up into buildings that are burning to rescue people. They have great big hoses and they wear all kinds of equipment so that they could go close to the fire and put out a fire if something catches on fire, or if a house or a business catches on fire. So firefighters keep us safe from fire, don't they? So I'm going to write that down here. That's pretty important because it's easy for something to catch on fire. We never know, right? Keep us safe from fire. So we have one more person, one more community helper that we mentioned in our story. Do you guys remember what it was? It was you. You and me and all the other people right now who are staying at home. So I'm going to write the word you down here because I think you are a very important community helper. You are helping all of our community, all province of Ontario, all of our country of Canada right now. You are being a community helper by staying home. Because if we stay in one place, we are not transporting the virus around that is out there right now. There's a bad virus out there, and it's making some people very sick. But we are being great community helpers by staying in our homes. So that way, the virus doesn't go to people who might not feel so well and might get very, very sick if they get the virus. Because remember, we talked about that before, that some people are a little bit weaker. Their immune system, they're not as healthy. And when you're not as healthy, then when you get a virus, you get extra sick. So we are protecting all the people out there from getting the virus by staying home. So how do they help? How do you help? You stay home. And stop the spread of the virus. My goodness, I'm running out of space, guys. We are such big learners. We wrote a lot today. So look at all of these community helpers. Now, Miss Fex didn't want to write a novel, which is a very, very long book. But guess what? There are so many other community helpers that I didn't mention on here. Can you think of any in your head? What about the taxi drivers? They're great community helpers because if you don't have a car or a truck or a way to get places, they will transport you there. That's a pretty important job, isn't it? Because sometimes you have a lot of groceries, and how are you going to carry your groceries if you have so many bags if you don't have a car, right? What about librarians? When Miss Fex was little, she always wanted to be a librarian because she loves books. But think of that. There's a person who makes sure that there's books that everybody can borrow to read, so that everybody can have access to books and to read about wonderful adventures. That's another great community helper. What about teachers? Teachers make sure that kids can learn. They come to school and they work with kids. Teachers make sure that kids can learn. So that's a pretty important part of our community because we want all the young people to be able to learn new things so that when they grow up, they can help their community.
Today, boys and girls, I'd like you to draw a picture of a community helper that you're very grateful or happy that we have. And Ms. Fex will post it on our Clayton Brown Public School Facebook page to let those community helpers know how happy and thankful we are that we have them. Here's the picture that Ms. Fex drew of a veterinarian taking care of a dog. She wrote at the top, "Vets help pets." I look forward to seeing your picture, and I will definitely be posting them on our Clayton Brown page to show all the community helpers how grateful and happy we are that they help us out.